as you pointed out, we have lit the candles from the holy light which has come from Bethlehem, and as you may know, that is lit by the finger of God in the Holy Sepulchre at between 12 and 2 o'clock on Holy Saturday, in the hands of the Patriarch, the Greek Patriarch, for historic reasons, and goes around the world. It actually comes to Dublin. I was made aware of that by a Romanian who belonged to the Eastern Church and is there when it gets to the celebration in Dublin at their Easter, which coincides maybe every 5 years with our own. But I want to zoom into the question of life and light. I am the light of life. Phos is light and Zoe is life. They're intimately linked. If in prayer a person who's known to be an authentic charismatic is praying over a person, that person will be shown to him whether he's in light or in darkness, and that person then has to be handled if what is coming up is not light. A person who has true gifts of knowledge will know something of why. People like Eddie Stones, they know pretty quickly if there's an issue and they send them straight away to the priest. That's why he always has priest hearing confessions when he's praying over people. But one of the first issues is there light in this soul? Is that soul, if it's now going to die, ready to go? Because metaphysically, if it's not in light, it can't see light, ever. So fundamentally, that is the big question, often brushed over. Christmas is not about Santi. It's about making sure that we get into the eternal light. And therefore light is a key theme at Eastertide and at Christmastide. One is linked with the other. We are greeting the light in our darkness. And I mentioned before how I live just in front of New Grange, where just the other day light was a big issue, the 21st of December. But we have the fullness of knowledge with regard to where we're going, and therefore more responsibility. The devil knows it. He is trying at all times to make sure that we have dim light, that we have confused messages, that our truth is not given to us, and that also the means of grace is, as it were, made difficult of access. Hence it is that only the tip of the iceberg is seen when we look at what is going on in present-day Ireland. We attack this and that symptom, but actually the illness is not looked at. People are not aware that they're playing the game of the one who hates us and doesn't want us to take his place in glory. He hates us with a perfect hate, and therefore the means of grace, the Catholic Church, will be attacked. As you probably know, the means that he's using are those that have an effect on souls, notably the media, but he's also using very powerfully those who have authority. That happens both in state and sometimes actually also in church. We know from exorcism that his best collaborators, and therefore secret friends, without their knowing it of course, are priests who, in the interests of being with it, give an incomplete message and therefore dilute the faith of the faithful. And they are given strange success at times. Look which priests are actually invited often to speak on the television. Is it not true that it's usually a certain brand, whereas others, who might be more orthodox, are made fun of, and very carefully and very cleverly. It's well orchestrated, these chat shows, if one looks at what actually is going on and how well planned it is. But there is also more going on than meets the eye. We know that there is a Masonic lodge very close to the Doyle. We also know that there is a tunnel joining the two. Therefore the question poses itself, are these messages coming at us all the time, all the time, all the time? through the pulpit of Satan, the television, and other means as well, precisely being manipulated. Now, if one looks at the end product, what is it? Both with regard to the structure of society, I mean access to Catholic education and the like, and the rights of the Church here on earth, and also within the life of the Church itself, cohesion and fidelity to the gospel of Christ. If all this is under massive attack, again one asks, are these but symptoms of something profound and never actually looked at? I was just talking actually this morning to somebody who assists regularly at exorcisms. A priest has to have lay people assisting all the time. You can never do it alone. And they have to be a support by their presence, but also by their prayer. And listening to what this consecrated virgin was saying, from Italy actually, she was saying quite a few things which were eye-openers. She knew all about what happens at 3 at night. That's when they have their black rituals, and how well they are trained at getting hold of the host, which they have to have. It's disappearing all the time without our being aware of it, because Satan is far cleverer than we are, and we're quite happy to trust people. But also, she was aware that there's more going on than meets the eye with regard to children. The exorcist and his young man, with which this team works, now has sometimes to exorcise even children. There's a huge amount of contamination going on, and the devil knows the advantage of getting a person as early on in life as he possibly can. All this is matter for thought at Christmastide. The devil is trying his best to get the innocent age as low as he possibly can, and contamination as far upstream as he possibly can make it. And listening also to one of these consecrated virgins, I have two of them staying with me right now, I was picking up how right now they can't give a book to read to a child ever without having first read it entirely, because a high percentage of them are contaminated subtly but deliberately with issues of gender and whatnot coming in. It's a massive hidden ploy. Get the children and give them a normality which then will become that of the society. If one looks at the success of certain streams of literature like Harry Potter, and actually even cartoons, things which before were safe, the whole realm of Walt Disney, one observes how subtly more and more vampires and things generally sinister are becoming the norm of a child's mind and imagination. Is that not hugely clever for the one who hates our soul? And people, parents in particular, are quite happy to leave them before a fantastic babysitter, not aware that they're exposing them precisely to the fumes of you-know-where. And also, this consecrated virgin was telling me how it's very difficult now to handle people who have been involved in stuff, because with the weakening of faith, they're very open to anything which is sort of spiritual or leading to healing. And she was explaining how people who have been, for the best of motives, got into some kind of healing, which is the wrong energy, are hugely difficult then to be brought back into a state of peace, psychological balance and warmth, because precisely they're opening the pores of their deepest being to the fumes of hell without knowing it. The demon also can heal, but at a cost. So when one talks about the effects of Reiki and all the rest of it, one knows how good Satan is at faking. Just to be aware that all this is the context, the true context of what the incarnation is about. When we go from the true faith back into some form of neo-paganism, where, as it were, showing how little we have learnt. if one goes to darkest Africa, there is power out there. The witch doctors do have power, huge power, but it's the same basic game. Do ut des, I give that you may give. The devil is giving a present at a cost, at a price. He's doing it on the level also of society. I just conclude, when we ask the Lord to come in the fullness of the sacramental sphere into our house, to hand over the house to Him, to ask Him to reign over a family, we are asking Him to cast away all that pertains to the other forces, but we're also engaging not to let them in, because it's not indifferent what we watch. It's a choice that has to be placed under God every time one engages with internet and the television, and even actually the radio. With regard to the big issue of the sacrifice of human life to demons in abortion, which is directly linked with what we're doing right now, because we're praying also for help and grace this year on that level, it is perhaps less known that Padre Pio one time was confessing a poor woman who was distraught because she'd been forced to have an abortion, and he said to her, "Madam, what have you done?" Because closing his eyes he could see what was the line of cause and effect. That child was going to be Pope. That is documented, it is true, and he knew things. Another case, through another source, it wasn't Padre Pio I think this time, it's more recent in time. People were wondering and asking why the Lord had never given a cure to mankind for cancer. And the Lord is known to have made it known to this privileged soul. He actually did. But the person who was going to make it known and discover it was aborted. So we don't know the future riddles of history. It's a whole metaphysical realm that we will never have access to, but the Lord does. And also it's important to be aware that this vast number of ungraced Muslims coming into our graced Catholic Europe is not indifferent either, because in practice, without knowing it, they are making it easier for the demon to take away the means of grace for Christians. When we are shy to own our faith and enthrone Christ in public because of political correctness, then we see how clever our enemy, the demon, is. And also we can't see, it would seem, how well organized he is with regard to making sure that 50 years hence, through abortion, through misuse of the body, weakening of the human resources with regard to procreation, because of essentially the wrong use of what is there for the growth of humanity, on one side, in Christian Catholic countries, next to the maximal use of those same faculties in these other cultures coming into our midst, that we're actually hugely making easy the work of the demon in making it gigantically another culture and another civilization in the very cradle of civilization as we know it. So it's not just indifferent, the whole question of political correctness. The two tools in his arms right now are one, PC, and two, ignorance. People don't know how well Satan uses what is apparently spirituality to get at his own strange ends. I just conclude. The very angel Gabriel, who appears more than once at the beginning of this Christmas cycle, is supposed to have appeared to you-know-who. Well, either he did or he didn't. If he did, all the gospel is a lie. If he didn't, it means probably that someone was good at impersonating him. And that same person knew exactly how to hit hard. Find a person who has no spiritual director, no real culture, can't even read or write. He's easy prey for deception. He's done it even with saints. He can do it with someone who didn't know how he was being used to push away the light of life from this planet.